What's up? First and foremost, I just want to say that I don't really have a solution for this, okay? This is just me talking because I think this is an interesting conversation topic, so don't expect, I don't know, some fucking United Nations Recommendation Act of 2025, okay? There's gonna be none of that. So recently, there's been leaks about casting calls for Spider-Man Brand New Day, and supposedly they're casting an Asian male 30 to 50, and people are speculating that it's gonna be Mr. Negative as the main antagonist for the film. And that kind of syncs up with the comic version of Brand New Day, I think. I might be wrong, I need to double check that. But, you know, that's pretty cool because we haven't seen Mr. Negative in live action yet, and, you know, Spider-Man has a very vast array of villains, and we don't want to keep repeating villains we haven't seen, but it will be nice to see Scorpion, but whatever. And I think I can speak for most people when I say that Mr. Negative became more popular when he appeared in the Spider-Man PS4 game as one of the main antagonists, and that really boosted his popularity, and ever since then people were like, yeah, it's a cool villain. And you know what, fair enough. So since that casting call, we've gotten a lot of suggestions by the internet, and that includes Steven Yeun, who seems like, from what I've read, the main suggestion, or the main fan casting suggestion for Mr. Negative. We have Daniel Day Kim from Lost and Hawaii Five-0, or that I'm a surgeon meme. You know, he's pretty famous as well. He's also got a chiseled fucking face. Jesus Christ. We also got Lee Byung-hong, who played the frontman in Squid Game, and he also played Storm Shadow, so he's really good with English and stuff. And, you know, I'm like, okay, cool, 3 Asian actors. So like I said before, I've seen a lot of comments suggesting all 3 of them to take on the role of Mr. Negative, but there's just one quirk that kind of stands in the way of that, and it's that they're all Korean. Mr. Negative, Martin Lee as an L.I., which is a Chinese surname, he is Chinese. Oh man, so that's something we should talk about. First and foremost, my ethnic background is Korean, so, you know, I think it's just funny to just stand on the sidelines and see what people are saying. So Mr. Negative's origin, it's pretty tied to China. Like, him being an immigrant from China, it's a big part of his story, so you can't just like sweep it under the rug or whatever the fuck. So should a Korean actor be able to play a Chinese character? Listen, if he asked this question like, I don't know, 20 years ago, people will go like, yeah, well, dude, who cares? However, now I feel like people are a bit more sensitive to that kind of decision, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if that happened, people wouldn't be like, so okay, cool. They wouldn't be like that. They'd be like, does Marvel and Disney think all Asians are the same? However, the counterpoint to this is that we have British and Irish actors play Americans all the time. Is there a difference? I don't know. That's what I find so interesting about this, because I don't want to be hypocritical, because it's just so, like, is it different? I don't think so. But at the same time, maybe it is. Because to say that Irish and Americans are basically the same people, like they're interchangeable, whatever, that's not like, that would be very offensive, especially to Irish people. And if you're like to a Korean person, oh, Koreans and Chinese, same thing, watch out. Like Cillian Murphy, he played Jonathan Crane's Scarecrow, but they didn't make him Irish, it was just an American character. And you know, I don't think anyone had a problem with that. So should it be the same for this? If Steven Yeun, a Korean actor, plays a Chinese character, should people just roll with it? I don't know. Just say that out loud. Oh my god, I can just see the internet shitstorm coming for Disney. There's no way Disney's PR would allow that to happen. But I might be wrong, because the casting call out was just any Asian. It didn't specify what ethnicity or whatever. It just said, I mean, like, it didn't specify any specific Asian ethnicity. It just said Asian, I believe, from what I remember of what I read. Also, on a related topic, in Black Panther, I'm pretty sure like at least 90% of those actors, they were African American. They weren't actually African, which is a pretty stark difference. I don't know. Listen. I am and was outside of the cultural loop when it comes to Black Panther with the black community and how people perceive that. Like, there might have been a lot of complaints about why are these Americans playing Africans? This is unfair. Cast some African actors. Like, there may have been, I'm pretty sure there were some complaints about that, but I'm not in that cultural bubble, okay? My fucking social media feed is just somewhere else. And yeah, I can definitely see that, you know what I mean? Because you can tell, well, I think for the most part, lots of people can tell when, and oh my God, I hope I'm not saying anything offensive, and if I am, I apologize. But I think a lot of people can tell whether someone is African American or from Africa. It's like Asian people and how they can 80% of the time tell which Asian country a person's ethnicity is originated from. So for example, I can usually tell whether someone's Chinese or Japanese or Filipino or Vietnamese, which might be very surprising to people who aren't within Asian people. That didn't make any sense, but you know what I mean? So yeah, for these types of situations, it's always gonna matter and people are always gonna tell. I'm pretty sure, speaking of Black Panther, but not to do with black people, there was this Korean woman who spoke Korean. Don't know if she was actually Korean, but that Korean was, my whole family didn't understand what she said, so, and they were in South Korea in the plot of the film, so there you go. Another fan cast that I've seen for someone to play Mr. Negative is Stephen O'Young, who played, or was it Stephen O'Young? Well, I'm sorry, I'm not sure the pronunciation, but he played Martin Lee in the Spider-Man PS4 game, and he's not just some voice actor, he did the mocap and everything. He's been in films like, I think his credits are like Sicario, which is a really good movie. He was, oh man, he was in recent movies as well. But anyways, he's not some like small nobody, right? Like he can take on a pretty significant role. He's a full-fledged actor. And that would be pretty sweet. Like that would be pretty sick, you know? Like you gotta give some small actors a chance. You can't just keep bringing Jake Gyllenhaal and fucking Michael Keaton, okay? Like, let's get some small actors. It's already gonna make $1 billion. You got Tom Holland and Zendaya and Sadie Sink, you know, like fuck it, who cares? Bring in an actor that's actually fit for the role, no matter their star power. And yeah, I think we can all agree that he did the role in the PS4 game pretty well, so I don't think there's gonna be any pushback on that. Maybe it might be a bit weird, like some people will go like, oh, well, he played it, Martin Lee in the game is playing it in the film, that's so unoriginal. I wouldn't mind it, to be honest. Like whatever gets the job done, he did a good job, you know, with the voice acting and the mocap and everything, and like he'll do a good job, I think. But this whole Martin Lee Mr. Negative situation doesn't end there. We also have the situation with just having a Chinese villain against a white hero. Now you might be thinking, what does that have to do with anything, okay? Mr. Negative is just a cool villain. He's got a cool looking suit and costume and aesthetic. He has cool powers. He has a cool like story with Feast, and you know, he's leading the demons and he's a gang leader and shit. That's pretty fucking sick, dude. Like what does that have to do with being a Chinese villain versus a white hero? Well, the thing is, every company in Hollywood wants to be on China's good side, and to have a white American hero fight a Chinese immigrant, yeah, you might be setting off some problems there, mate. And listen, if this tariff war keeps going, I don't know if you guys have seen, but China has threatened to block all Hollywood films from entering China, which you might be like, oh, who cares, bro, who cares? No, because China is a massive demographic for all film, and that will be a real punch to the gut because, you know, lots of big film companies, they take some time to make sure their films are China suitable, especially Disney. That's the reason why Taskmaster didn't have a skull mask. You know, for one example, that's the reason why the Mandarin wasn't actually Chinese, or he wasn't a racist caricature warlord. So it's possible they change Martin Lee, L-I to L-E-E, to just make him Chinese to Korean and just cast the Korean actor. But I would feel kind of, I don't know if feeling bad is the right word, because, you know, we haven't gotten a Chinese, actually we got the Mandarin, but like, I don't want representation to come, you know, at the cost of another person's reputation, because Martin Lee, he's a Chinese character, and I feel like a lot of Chinese people, it would be cool to see a Chinese villain in a Spider-Man movie. That would be fucking sick. I don't know, this just seems like a minefield waiting to go off. And listen, they're probably gonna butcher Mr. Negative anyway. They're just gonna make him like some fucking multiversal villain who's a product of Tony Stark, Doctor Doom, because it takes place after Avengers Doomsday or whatever. It's gonna be one of those, oh, they changed everything except how he looks. So yeah, it's a very dicey conversation. And like I said in the beginning, I don't have a solution for this, okay? Maybe except casting Stephen O. Young, but I'm sure if they do go with Mr. Negative, they'll figure something out. Maybe they'll pull an Iron Man 3. They'll just go like, actually, here's not Mr. Negative, and they'll just have some other white guy be like, I'm the real Mr. Negative. So yeah, just wanted to get my thoughts out there because it's a very, very sensitive topic that you kind of need to tiptoe around and you kind of need to get right in today's culture, you know? So Marvel, be careful. I don't know who you're gonna side with because there's a lot of people who are like, fuck it, just cast Steven Yeun, which I don't know, maybe it's not a big deal to just make him Korean. I'm sure 99% of people who watch Marvel films, they don't care about this. They'll just be like, whatever, dude, Asian guy, who cares? But I find this kind of thing really interesting to talk about. So yeah, thanks for listening, watching me fucking yap. See ya. Oh my God, do you hear that voice crack? Jesus.
Shipt knows that no order is ordinary. When you order produce, Shipt sees the meals and memories you'll produce with it. Not just soap in your cart, it's what washes away the day. Not paint, but strokes of genius. That's why shoppers with Shipt deliver same day and shop the same way you would.
Use code SAVINGS to become a Shipt member for half off, only $49 at shipt.com/offer. Terms apply.
We're back with your unpopular Marvel opinions. At StopZilla07 says, hot take. I prefer when the movie costumes aren't a one-to-one adaptation of the comic look. It allows for something that stays true to the character while leaving room for creative ideas. The OG Ant-Man suit and Raimi Spider-Man are perfect examples. Thank God you started off with a hot take, otherwise I wouldn't have known this was going to be a hot take under a YouTube post asking for your hot takes. Anyway, I think this is a pretty good take that's not discussed enough, to be honest. One of the first things people, including me, think about when they reveal a new superhero costume or design or whatever is how comic accurate is it. And like it said here, it's not really that necessary, just make it look cool. It's always nice to have some pizzazz, you know? Like the Man of Steel Superman suit, no, it's not comic accurate, but it's a pretty cool take on what a modern Superman would look like. Or if we want to take another step further, Bloodsport looks nothing like his comic counterpart, but everyone thought that he looked cool. And yes, I do realize that those two examples are from DC, and this is meant to be about Marvel. I think the key word here is adaptation. Like MCU lines aren't bad inherently. They break up shapes and they give textual differences to make it more visually interesting to the human eye, because we don't want to see a fucking neon spandex for 2 hours on screen. That would look ridiculous. So like it said here, some creative personality that you can see in the costume design, that's always appreciated. At Shasha-0603 says, we need more day-in-the-life projects for superheroes. It's always saving the world and preventing the universe from exploding. Characters would benefit from more personal and smaller scale stories. I think we can agree that this would be nice, but really only on paper. Listen, here's something that most writers adhere to. So if you've never written a story or screenplay or whatever, you will now learn. Most stories that are put to screen are focused on an event that changes the protagonist's life forever. Yes, there are exceptions to this, but fundamentally, a story usually hinges on the fact that our hero goes on a journey and experiences some sort of change, usually within themselves. Otherwise, again, there are exceptions, it's usually not a story worth telling. And to have a day-in-the-life story, that may work for a TV show or a comic, but that is a crazy investment risk to finance a film, especially a blockbuster that's gonna cost hundreds of millions of dollars. This is why the Sam Coulson character in Brave New World didn't really feel that interesting. He doesn't really change much from beginning to end and didn't really feel like a life-changing story for him, whereas Steve Rogers, in every single one of his Captain America films, by the end, he's basically in a new stage of life. And I guess the easiest way to make an event feel more important to a character is to raise the stakes. So that's why we get stakeflation, like, oh, everything is in fucking danger now. But I'm not a professional writer, so I don't know. Also, this comment has two different opinions in one. Just because something's about saving the world doesn't mean it can't be personal either. Thunderbolts is a good example of this. Yes, the world is at stake, but it does rely on a personal and emotional journey to close out the conflict. However, I do agree that relying on world-ending shenanigans often take away from what could have been a more succinct story. I don't think Deadpool and Wolverine had to be about saving the multiverse. It just made it more busy, and for what? Cameos? So yeah, day in the life projects. I think people like the idea of it than they actually would in real life. At Afaha Shah 1266 says, I liked the bank heist episode in Born Again Season 1. Didn't feel like a waste of time or even a filler/bottle episode to me. Yeah, I thought it was a nice episode. I thought it was a bit overhated, but I could tell that it was a bit fillerish. Like, you know that they just had to work that shit in. But it felt like a single comic issue between big story arcs, you know? Like, that's why I liked it. So people be begging for day in the life stories, you know, keep it calm, doesn't have to be world ending and stuff. And when an episode like this comes along, everyone's like, what the fuck? What a waste of time! Fucking get onto the main story! This is why I say that fans usually don't know what they want. No, but I just want to see heroes do their street level thing and like their day-to-day shenanigans. But not like stopping a bank robbery. At _Zefster says, if I'm going with MCU, then the Ironheart clip that went viral this year makes sense and is perfectly reasonable as long as you listen to the whole monologue regardless of watching the rest of the episode and didn't look for a reason to hate it. She said that Tony Stark needed funds to become Iron Man, but she's using that to explain why she's using immoral means to acquire funds. So she's saying he'd be able to make money as well since she saw him as a fellow genius. I think I already discussed this in a past video or my discussion channel or something, but I'll cover it again. Yeah, this was the biggest fucking overreaction of all time. I wonder why. And I thought the show was pretty mid. Like, it wasn't awful to me, but it wasn't good either. But the way people would just snip out this one line to just farm views and shit on social media, I'm like, bro, this is crazy. And then everyone's like, well, Tony actually made his suit in a cave with scraps. He doesn't need money to be Iron Man. Well, bitch, you know how long the Mark 1 would last against the first Ironheart suit? Probably less than 2 seconds. Then Tony cranks out the Mark II with his billion-dollar technology. Would that have been possible if he was lower middle class? No. Like, he would have been able to make something, but definitely not that. And I can't believe people were so focused on this little things to hate on this show when this show had one of the most annoying characters I've ever encountered in the MCU. At Chibi Steak says, I like the grey, colorless color grading in Civil War and other MCU movies. I feel like your dinner is just boiled chicken, white bread, and blanched cauliflower. That airport battle scene in particular and a bunch of other little scenes in that movie, they just look so visually uninteresting, like an expensive TV show. It worked for Winter Soldier with its groundedness, but even that looked better than Civil War, which was a fucking all-out superhero movie. I don't want to blow the load too quick, but from what we've seen of Avengers Doomsday, I think it has potential to be one of the prettiest MCU films ever. Even just the indoor scenes feel intentionally lit, the colors and shadows are popping out nicely, but who knows, that might just be all scenes that don't even make it into the final movie and we just get a bunch of volume great junk. At the Hannah Cast says, I think making a cinematic universe around Spider-Man villains can work, even without Spider-Man. Anything can work with the right idea and the right filmmakers. Imagine a symbiote space horror or Norman Osborn film that plays like a Jeff Bezos biopic, except he becomes a literal murderous goblin. I think there is potential in this universe idea if Sony was willing to actually plan it out properly. I know there's kind of no point talking about this because the Sony Marvel universe is kind of dead, but considering that 99% of the comments were about the MCU, I appreciate the break. I also think it could have worked. Would it have been ideal? Obviously not. Let's just say that we accept the fact that Sony was gonna go ahead with the Spider-Man-less Spider-Man universe whether we liked it or not. I think starting with Venom was a good idea. Lots